Massive Chalice is a turn-based strategy game that's really, honestly, very unique, but it's not nearly as complex as its official description might lead you to believe. So in this game, you play as an immortal strategist, essentially. You and your talking Chalice work together to run a kingdom that's under invasion by the Cadence, which is essentially a mist that spawns enemies and consumes territory if it manages to corrupt it enough. You can create keeps and assign heroes there to rule it. They will produce new heroes, the class and traits of which being influenced by the regent's traits and class, along with that of his or her spouse. You can research technologies, except not really, because research is used to build and craft new items, and buildings like keeps, guilds that increase research speed, and crucibles that help train your heroes to higher levels. Higher level parents also create higher level heroes, but if you assign all of your high levels to rule, then you won't be able to fight with them. So you might leave yourself with a really weak army, so that adds to the strategy. As awesome as that entire strategic layer sounds, you have to realize that's all there is to it though. You have a very limited space to build, and engineering your bloodlines turns into more of a chore with the more keeps you get. Your time out of battles will be almost entirely spent replacing dead heroes in non-combat roles, and just repeating the same drudgerous tasks over and over again, and that gets old really fast. There are special events that pop up as well on the strategic layer that allow you to make a choice of how to handle situations. These situations can either lead you to gaining or losing a hero, or maybe even suffering an invasion at a critical location in your kingdom because you thought opening what was essentially Pandora's box was a good idea. As bad as they tended to fuck me over, I really did enjoy their presence. They helped add some variety and extra challenge to an otherwise bland and repetitive premise. The combat works amazingly similar to XCOM. It seems directly inspired by it, in fact, though it does lack a meaningful cover system. You kind of just move your heroes around and you can use items, abilities, and basic attacks. There's a stealth mechanic built in for a few hunter-based classes, but it's really rather useless since range doesn't affect the accuracy of that class's attacks, and it can only actually stealth around tall objects. You venture through an area and open up the fog and then spot new enemies and try to deal with them. You can also have a keep or something be attacked, in which case all the enemies run out of the fog and try to overwhelm you. The enemies scale up in level over time as well to make the game more difficult and challenging. And that's another good thing to note, is that this game is played on a timer. You have to survive about 300 years or so in-game. As time goes on and the enemies scale up in level, you will also find new types of enemies, always much stronger than the last. There's typically a trick to fighting all of them, but these enemy types are really brutal. One of the early on enemy types drains the experience of your heroes with every hit. This can cause them to lose a level, a skill, and stats as a result mid-mission. Another one advances the age of your heroes with every single hit. I've literally had one of my heroes die of old age in combat because they were hit by one of these things. And then there are plenty of generic ones as well with their own twists, like these kamikaze ones called Ruptures that rush in, blow up, and basically consume your heroes in a pit of acidic goo. The variation and challenge in the enemies is fantastic, really. It's so painful to watch a hero you've trained up die of old age as they're rushed by two age-advancing enemies. But it's so much fun to get stronger and kill them before they get a chance to attack. The graphics of Massive Chalice are cartoony. They're nothing to brag about, and the sounds are just alright as well. They weren't revolutionary for when the game released, but at the same time, it's not like they're ancient now. Overall, Massive Chalice is actually a really fun concept, and it has some really good things about it. Unfortunately, the game itself is very repetitive, as there's only really two aspects to it, and you switch between them a lot. After your first 50 in-game years, you'll start to feel the repetition, because within that time, you've already experienced everything the game has to offer. All you really have to look forward to after that is a scaling difficulty and a race against the clock. Part of the challenge of surviving 300 years in Massive Chalice is trying not to get bored of the game in that time. It was a really fun game for a very short amount of time. I got it for $2 on a sale, and let me tell you, there's a reason it was $2. You really might as well just play XCOM instead. Any XCOM, even spin-offs of XCOM, they all have more depth than this. Massive Chalice gets a 4 out of 10 for me. It has some really refreshing and underused concepts in it, but it's just too bland and lacking to really justify its full price of $20. Even paying $2, I don't feel like I got my money's worth because I was frustrated with boredom for most of the time that I played it. I'd avoid this one if I were you. It's very short, it's very simple, and it's very boring. If you found this review helpful, make sure to hit the subscribe button and check out our other videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next Res Reviews.